Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. Today we are talking about Apple because they've just been ordered to break their own encryption. This is insane. This is dangerous. But this is what's happening. Now, Dominic Preston of The Verge had a really good write-up on this, and if you didn't know, Apple has reportedly been ordered by the UK government, that's the United Kingdom, to create a back door that would give security officials access to users' encrypted iCloud backups. Now, if they actually implement this, UK security services would have access to the backups of any user worldwide, not just their citizens. And for the record, Apple would not be permitted to alert users, meaning if you've got an iCloud basically backup that's encrypted, they would not be able to alert you that your encryption's actually been compromised thanks to them. Now, the Washington Reports reported that essentially the secret order issued last month is based on rights given under the UK's Investigatory Powers Act of 2016. It's commonly known as the Snoopers Charter, and apparently for good reason. Officials have apparently demanded blanket access to end-to-end encrypted files uploaded by any user worldwide rather than access to specific accounts. In other words, they're not fishing for one individual that could potentially be a criminal. They're fishing with dynamite and blowing up the whole pond. So Apple's iCloud backups aren't encrypted by default, but the advanced data protection option was added in 2022 to iCloud and must be enabled manually by the user. And it uses end-to-end encryption so that not even Apple can access the encrypted files. And for record, we'll talk about this. Apple iPhones themselves have been encrypting for years. Initially, you had to turn it on, and now it's on by default. And if you give it a good password, it's hard to crack. So in response to this order, Apple is expected to simply stop offering advanced data protection in the UK, but this would not meet the UK's demand for access to files that are shared by global users. So Apple has the right to appeal the notice on the basis of the cost of implementing it and whether the demand is proportionate to the security requirements, but any appeal cannot delay implementation of the original order. So in other words, if they have an appeal next month and they're supposed to do this next week, they're doing it next week. That's, again, UK law. So the UK has reportedly served Apple a document called a Technical Capability Notice. It's essentially a criminal offense to even reveal that the government has made this demand of Apple. In other words, Apple can't sit there and tweet it out, throw a press conference in London, whatever they want to do. They can't tell anybody, which is why this is absolutely insane. And similarly, if Apple did accede to the UK's demands, then it apparently would not even be able to warn any Apple user that its encrypted service is no longer fully secure. Now, security services and lawmakers in the UK have consistently pushed back against end-to-end encrypted services. That's no different here in the United States as well as most major countries as well, because they're all arguing that the technology makes it easier for terrorists, child abusers, etc., to hide for law enforcement. And yeah, that is actually a true statement, but the problem that we have is that overwhelmingly the vast majority of the population around the entire planet, I don't care where you're from, is not a terrorist or a child abuser. And so we make laws to the lowest common denominator that make it easier for law enforcement to find the terrorists and the child abusers. And for the record, we all want them found. But nevertheless, that shouldn't be sacrificing our privacy. And I quote a UK government spokesperson talking to The Guardian in 2022 after Apple first introduced end-to-end encryption into its iCloud backups. End-to-end encryption, should I do this in a British accent? End-to-end encryption cannot be allowed to hamper efforts to catch predators of the most serious crimes, governor. There you go. So U.S. agencies, obviously including the FBI, have expressed similar fears in the past. I literally wrote an article entitled Apple and Goliath on that. If you remember the San Bernardino shooter, they could not get into his phone. It was encrypted. And so the FBI went to Apple to say, crack the encryption. Basically, the Apple said, go pound sand. If we do it for the San Bernardino shooter's phone, it's basically cracking everybody's phone. But more recently, they've begun recommending encryption as a way to counter the hackers in China. So double-edged sword there, especially when you're under cyber attack, as the United States has been for years. Now, in December of 2024, basically a couple months ago, the NSA and FBI joined the countries of Canada, Australia, and New Zealand's cybersecurity centers in recommending web traffic be end-to-end encrypted to the maximum extent possible in new security best practices. UK, for the record, did not join them in this statement. So, if Apple grants UK government access to to encrypted data, then it's likely that other countries, including the US and China, will see this as an opportunity to essentially demand the same right. Apple will have to decide whether it will comply or it will remove its encryption service entirely in the UK. Other tech companies would almost obviously face the same request. Google, I'm looking at you for Android, and here we are. And so this, I think, is one of those big issues that we have. I don't want the Trump administration or even the previous Biden administration or any presidential administration or a foreign government in my encrypted account. I don't use Apple, but nevertheless, the point being here is that no matter where my data resides, it should be hardened against, governments. The government should require a warrant, whatever the government is. They should have a legal process that says we have enough evidence to say Nick's a terrorist or whatever, and let's go in and take a look at his stuff. But just to have it unlocked automatically so they can snoop? No, absolutely not. I mean, this is why Edward Snowden broke all of this information about over 10 years ago now, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And so this is, I think, a very serious issue. And this is also one of the last frontiers of privacy that we have. If you're a longtime listener or follower of mine, you know I talk about there's just severe issues we have maintaining privacy, where our phones are fingerprinting us, even if they're not attached to our names, in marketing databases, all this kind of stuff, not to mention, all the algorithms, the software development kits by the Amazons and the Facebooks of the world, not to mention the TikToks and now DeepSeek and everything else. We have a very serious issue with privacy. And if we can't store things that we consider personal in a cloud where they're offering end-to-end encryption and it not be safe because a government simply is ordering a company to crack it and the company can't tell us, I don't care who you are or what you are on the political spectrum. We should all have a problem with that. And so if you're in the UK, write your member of parliament, write the prime minister. I don't know what what you should do, but the point is, say something. We all have to fight this. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, just please, please, please attempt to stay private and informed. Take care.